This story comes from a grand estate in Essex, the kind of house where every Christmas candle casts long shadows, and some of those shadows belong to memories that refuse to fade. Tonight, we return to 1845, to the first Christmas of a young housemaid named Mavis, and the moment that bound her to this house forever. Mavis had only been with the Seymour family for a few months, Father Edward, Mother Katie, and their children Nancy and William. As December advanced, the house was alive. Evergreen garlands, candles flickering on the tree in the great hall, and the scent of roasting goose and plum pudding rising from the kitchen. Everyone was eager for Christmas Eve, the presents after supper, the laughter, the warmth. But Mavis, she felt uneasy. It was something small at first, a metallic whisper in the corridor, a sense that she was being watched when she fetched coal from downstairs. One evening, she looked out towards the stable yard, and for a moment, the world beyond the glass seemed wrapped in a pale film, as though everything outside was half there and half gone. Then a figure dashed past the window so suddenly, she dropped the coals she was carrying. She turned to call out, but the person had vanished into the dark. "I'm not imagining it," Mavis told herself. "It's only Christmas. It'll pass." But the dread only grew. A few nights before the big evening, December 21st, Mavis caught the butler, Mr. Melbourne, winding the grand mantel clock in the morning room. She smiled at him. "I don't think I've ever seen a clock keep better time." He nodded, still focused on the winding key. The Seymour family never knew who crafted the mantel clock, only that it was older than the house itself. Some said it came from a clockmaker no one could name. Mr. Melbourne handled it with a respect that bordered on fear. "Might it snow this year, Mr. Melbourne?" Mavis asked. He looked out through the mullioned window at the darkening sky. "I'm sure it will, young Mavis," he said. That night, as Mavis lay awake, she heard it again, a low hiss of something mechanical, a faint whirring sound in the attic above the servants' quarters. She buried her head under the pillow, telling herself it was the wind or the new gas light settling. The next day, the house hummed with guests arriving for Christmas. Later, as she sat with Mrs. Croft, the older cook, and the butler in the servants' wing, Mavis half laughed and said, "It's so beautiful this year. I can't imagine how it could ever be better." Jasper, the family spaniel, barked playfully at her feet, demanding scraps. She ruffled his ears. Mr. Melbourne nodded, but his eyes were distant. He excused himself and left the room quietly. Mrs. Croft eyed her sharply. "You're getting ahead of yourself, girl. Don't forget the pudding must be stirred each hour, and the fire must be banked. One slip at Christmas, and the whole holiday is done for." Mavis nodded dutifully, but inside she wondered, why does she seem angry? Christmas Eve finally arrived. The Seymour children tumbled down the grand staircase, ribbons bouncing, their laughter echoing through the house. In the dining hall, Mavis added the last coals to the hearth and brushed soot from her sleeves. She paused. Something was wrong. The mantel clock in the morning room ticked too loudly. Each second landed like a tap on the inside of her skull. Tick, tick, tick. She stood absolutely still, listening. And there it was again. A faint sound from above the servants' quarters. A soft, stuttering, whirring sound, a clicking sound. Mechanical, deliberate, repeating. Cold flooded through her, spreading through her chest like ink in water. A feeling like stepping into a memory she hadn't lived yet. She turned towards the window, not because she saw anything, but because she felt time hesitate. Behind her, Mr. Melbourne appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Melbourne?" she whispered. He looked at her with a sorrow she did not understand, as though he had already watched her die. "Miss Mavis," he murmured, "you should go downstairs." She opened her mouth to reply. but the mantel clock began to chime. Not midnight, not the hour, the wrong sound. A stutter in its rhythm. Bong, bong, bong. The world flickered, like candlelight catching a bitter draught. The smell of goose and spices vanished, replaced by smoke. Thick, acrid, yet familiar. She staggered back, choking, and suddenly memories tore through her like fire through dry timber. The heat, the staircase lit like a torch, the clock striking 12, her own scream swallowed by smoke. Dozens of times, maybe hundreds. She had died in this house more times than she could count, and each year, that clock reset the night. Her vision blurred. "Mr. Melbourne," she gasped. "How long?" He bowed his head. "It resets every Christmas Eve," he whispered, "until the clock one day will finally stop." Above them, the faint mechanical whir sputtered and then groaned. Something in the machinery jammed. This year, the loop was faltering. The mantel clock ticked and then stopped. Silence filled the hall. Mavis' breath trembled in her throat. For the first time in more than a century, the night did not restart, and the fire did not ignite. In the stillness, in the dark, she felt something she had not known in all her remembered lives. Peace. The house did burn that night, long ago. A single ember leapt from the stove in the servants' wing, and the flames raced through the attic and down the grand staircase. The family escaped, but Mavis did not. She'd stayed behind long enough to rescue the family dog, but the smoke overtook her. Some say that if you walk the grounds of this mansion past midnight on Christmas Eve, you can still hear the ticking of a mantel clock that stopped long ago. And near the servants' wing, you may glimpse a young maid feeding scraps to a barking dog, laughing into the night. Join us again next week for another story.